Set. 4, 3, 1.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday Morning Quarterback. We are a podcast of three pastors who love ministry, leadership, and sports. Finally, Adam is out of the sick house. Adam, how you feeling today, sir?
I'm feeling great, ready to get back in the saddle here.
Very nice. Dad coming in from the Music City. I know we're recovering from that horrible loss last night. You doing all right today, Dad?
I'm doing okay. A little cold here in Nashville, but doing okay.
Goodness gracious. Well, glad you guys are here today. This is the first one when it's been just us in a while, and so we got a lot of good topics, so hope y'all are doing well. Hope everybody's doing well out there. It's getting cold. Adam, is it cold in Virginia? Because it is freezing here.
Yeah, we've got a high of about, I think, 51 or 52 today, so today's kind of the official first cold day we've had.
Man, everybody's got the jackets out. It was freezing at church yesterday, but anyways, football is rolling along. Dad, I'm going to start with you. Reactions to college or NFL weekend, what storylines, what games stuck out to you or broke your heart?
Well, broke my heart. Let's just go ahead and say it for what it is. The Dallas Cowboys broke my heart. I really thought that they had a week off. They were going to come in Mike McCarthy's old stomping grounds. They're going to play hard for him, and they laid an egg. They really did. I was disappointed in them. And, you got to call it for what it is. It's the same old story. Dak Prescott should be able to lead this team to victory in these games. They had a 28-14 lead in the fourth quarter, so they should have brought it home. So the offense failed me a little bit. Defense failed me, gave up a lot of big plays. And at the end of the day, a lot of penalties and just undisciplined. And, if you're going to make it far in this league, you got to be clean. You got to play clean, and you got to win the games you're supposed to win. And right now, we're not doing so. However, we can right this ship by beating Minnesota this Sunday. So I'm laying cheeseburgers at them.
Prosperity.
Right now, I'm calling Dallas will beat Minnesota and right this ship.
Oh,
All right,
hey,
is this a Five Guys cheeseburger or a McDonald's?
Only McDonald's. I'm not there yet.
Hey, with inflation, man, McDoubles have gone up, so those aren't cheap cheeseburgers anyway. Dad, I was sitting there, I was driving in this morning, and I was just in my somber, like, how did we lose that game? And then I thought to myself, did we contribute to the Dallas Cowboys loss? Because we talked a whole bunch of junk last week when Adam was gone. We had RJ Ochoa on. We talked about the Cowboys and prosperity, and look what we did. Unbelievable. But Adam suffered a little heartbreak, too. His Liberty Flames lost to UConn. But anyway, we won't go there. Adam, what stuck out to you this football weekend?
Well, one of my teams did lose, and so their chances of sticking in the top 25 are probably done because of them not being one of these big schools. But as you see behind me, I'm here for my press conference today.
Uh-oh.
Lifelong Tar Heel fan. We are ranked 13th.
Yeah.
We beat Wake Forest, which is never easy. Not that they're a dominant program, but we've got 2 games left. The big one is the final game against NC State. And if the Heels can handle their business, they have a chance, an outside chance, but a chance of making the college football playoff. And I will need my own episode for that. And we may need a little edit button. But that'll be great. But as far as what stood out to me, aside from my bias this week, is the color purple. All right. And I'm going to start in college, and I'm going to say the TCU Horned Frogs are real. They are real. I think a lot of people have been waiting on them. It seems like for the last 10 years, they've been a good program. They barely missed out, I think 1 year, 6 or 7 years ago, but kind of flying under the radar the last few years. But I tell you what, to go this past week and have the ranking they did at number 4, and then go to Austin, Texas, where you just know, man, they hate Texas and everything that Texas is and stands for. And to really thump them, it wasn't a close game. They are the real deal. And I'm glad to see it. I like parity in sports. So that's my first purple team. And then my second purple team, as you might guess, goes to the NFL and the Minnesota Vikings.
Vikings.
And I'm not here to, as much as I enjoy, pick on the Cowboys per se, because the Cowboys, they've got a good roster, but, Kirk Cousins in particular is exercising some demons. I think he's probably having the best year of his career if you just look at his team record. And so they're sitting at 8-1, I believe, or is it maybe 9-1 now? Yep. Way, way, way above the Green Bay Packers. And I'm happy for their fan base. It's good to see, again, parity in sports. So the purple stood out to me this weekend.
Dad, let me educate Adam because any Cowboy fan knows that we are under a satanic spell as Cowboys under Aaron Rodgers. And in the same way, Kirk Cousins is under a spell under the Cowboys. Dad, you were there a few Thanksgivings ago when he was with the Redskins, the How You Like That game, and he was throwing all over and doing all this. But every time, I don't know what it is. Last year, they were rolling. We had a backup quarterback, and Dak got hurt. We beat the Vikings. Now, they're loaded. They got Thielen. They got Jefferson. They're loaded. But it seems like every big-time, prime-time game, and Kirk is playing. He's balling this year. But every time, he just struggles with the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't know what it is, Adam, but the Cowboys, they're kind of like the nation of Israel. They just hate prosperity. They get out front, and they start reading their press clippings, and then we lay an egg. But we are at our best when everybody's written us off, everybody's poured dirt on us, and just like Stephen A. says, they just give us just enough. They set us up, and then they break our hearts every time, and we fall for it.
Yeah, but, I loved what he said. He said the weather's cold, the holidays are coming, and the Cowboys are gonna just pander out at the end of the year, like clockwork every single year.
It's kind of sad if you look at all the teams that have won the Super Bowl since the last time we were in the NFC Championship. I mean, bad teams. The Bears have even been. Some of the worst teams. The Jaguars have been to the conference game. I mean, just pathetic. But you got to think that one of these days, the luck is going to turn toward the boys. But, hey, one thing that just continues to baffle me, the Raiders. Woo! Man, you got Devontae Adams and you got Derek Carr, who were supposedly college buddies, and then now they're at odds, and Josh McDaniels, and you got the quarterback backing the coach, and you got the receiver backing the coach, and they ain't backing each other. That one shocked me. Another one, Adam, you kind of pointed to it in our group chat. The Chargers. I like Herbert, and, man, everybody brought him into this year like he was the second coming of – he was right there with Mahomes or Allen, and I think he's kind of regressed a little. I don't know if it's the ribs. He just doesn't have that next extra fifth gear that Mahomes and Allen have. And so, weird day around the NFL. The Packers and the Bucks, they were only going to be just terrible for so long. And so, while we blew that game and should have won it, I wasn't surprised that those teams broke out of it. So, hey, we're going to do something we hadn't done, and we won't pontificate too much on this. But, Adam, I'm going to start with you. We're going to do our top fives today. We're about midway through the season. So, Adam, here's what I want to hear first. We're gonna do the Preacher Power Rankings, okay? New segment, Preacher Power Rankings. So, Adam, the first block we're gonna talk about is your top 5 NFL team power rankings, and then the second one, because the receivers have just been balling across the league this year, who are your top 5 in order receivers? But we'll just start on teams. So, Adam, top 5 teams, lay them out for us.
Okay. Yeah, good. So number 5, I've got the Miami Dolphins. That division they're in it's a turnstile week by week. But the Dolphins, even with a few questionable losses, and then Tua was injured for a game or two, they're still right there. And I think their roster's just loaded. So I've got them at number 5. At number 4, I've got the Minnesota Vikings, fresh off their win over the Cowgirls. And their record kind of speaks for itself. You almost can't argue with having one loss at this point in the season. And then oddly enough, right in front of them, I've got the team they beat yesterday in the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, wow.
And the reason that I'm going to put the Bills there is because I still believe the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl. But also, I think, that was a very close game. I think the Bills have had a tough schedule, and they have Josh Allen, and Minnesota, as good as Cousins is playing, is not Josh Allen. So I've got the Bills at number 3. At number 2, fly, Eagles, fly. and they are in sole possession of first place in the NFC East. I don't see that changing. I was telling one of my buddies here at church yesterday, who's a big Eagles fan. I hope they lose a game or two before the playoffs start, so they get that taste in their mouth. But I see them as kind of the class of the NFC still. And then at number one, I've got the Kansas City Chiefs, the Golden Boy. They have won some really difficult games. And it's just interesting to watch, that roster kind of move around a little bit, but as long as you've got a quarterback like Pat Mahomes, in my mind right now, as it stands today, that is the number one team in the NFL.
Very interesting. Dad, who's your top 5?
Well, number 5 is Buffalo Bills, and Minnesota is number 4. I just want to go ahead and put that out there. They're number 4. And everything about me wants to put Buffalo ahead of Minnesota because, like Adam said, I think if they played again, Buffalo wins. They should have won that game yesterday, but Minnesota went to Buffalo, beat Buffalo, and after everything that went on in the fourth quarter, they came back, should have lost, but they kept fighting and they kept scrapping. So I'm going to put Minnesota at 4 and Buffalo 5, but again, if they played again, I'm pulling for Buffalo. I think they're a better team. Number 3, Miami Dolphins. That's right, the Miami Dolphins. They have not lost with Tua, and when Tua is their quarterback, they are rolling the points on the scoreboard. They also beat Buffalo, the first team to beat Buffalo. So I really am liking Miami. I think they have a great offense, and I think their defense is really good and getting better every Sunday. So they're putting both sides of the ball together right at the right time. And so I think they're really catching some fire. They got some a real belief factor. They got some alpha males on that team right now with skill. And I can see them going a long way. We're going to have to see what they can do with the cold weather, but I'm not going to hold that against this team right now. And at number 2, I'm going to put the Eagles. Eagles are stout, again, both ways. I don't have to say anything more about them. They're undefeated. And so that's that. And number 1, the Golden Boy, Kansas City. They have not missed a beat. They look like they're going to do what they always do, and they come ready for ball. They play to their team, and they're always formidable. And so until I see somebody beat them, they're number 1 for me.
Well, I'm going to start in reverse order because somebody told y'all that Kansas City was going to run the table and everybody forgot about them and everybody's paying attention to all these other quarterbacks. So I'm going to start number 1 with the Chiefs. I tried to tell y'all what was going to happen, and sure enough, it did. And number 2, obviously the Eagles. And Adam, by the way, I'm kind of conflicted because Dallas plays the Eagles on Christmas Eve. But being that we're preachers, we have a Christmas Eve service during the game. Yesterday, I had to delete my ESPN app, turn my text notifications off because I had church meetings and I had small group. And as much as I love my Cowboys, I had to prioritize. And so I didn't get to watch the game till 2 hours after it was over. And every time I do that, they lose. And so I just I'm kind of conflicted on it. But I'm predicting right here their first loss is going to come on Christmas Eve at Jerry World. So put that in your back pocket.
Hey, I don't know if when you were little, this is how great God is. Listen to how good he is. When I was a kid, my parents would allow me to open one present on Christmas Eve. And the Lord is going to deliver a present to America this year by watching America's team take another L on Christmas Eve. It's going to be a great night. It's going to be a great night.
They're going to beat us twice.
Hey,
give that gift to your kids, man. We don't want that gift. Come on, pull that back, Adam.
Trying to speak all this bad stuff. All right, so I'm Chiefs number 1, Eagles 2. Dad, I think he copied my list. I got Vikings. I mean, 8-1 versus the Dolphins. I mean, they've lost 3 games, and yeah, because of Tua. But I got to give him respect, man. Kirk Cousins, he has earned it. Now, can he keep it up all year? Probably not. Is he going to have his moments? But, man, this is by far the best season. I mean, he's got some studs. We'll talk about them in a minute. I got Dolphins number 4. Tua. Put some respect on Tua's name, man. A lot of humble pie that needs to come around to all those people that said he's too small, he can't throw. Man, if you look at his passing percentage, accurate. Tyreek Hill's making us all look silly. I laughed. I said, Tyreek Hill said, what? He's the most accurate passer? No, I was laughing. And Tyreek Hill's making me eat my words. Dolphins number 4, Bills number 5. Let me tell you, man, the Bills, they're that streaky shooter. They're very similar to Golden State. They can just put up points real quick. But here's the thing, man. We're starting to see it. They can lose to anybody. Josh Allen's like a wild pony. Are we starting to see the after effects of Brian Daboll being gone, not there to coach him up? To quote Colin Cowherd, his mechanics are getting a little sloppy. He's running too much instead of taking the check down. And so that's interesting. I definitely think they can win the Super Bowl, but I definitely could see them getting bounced in a wild card game because you just
Hey, Joseph, is Josh Allen who he's always been? That's the question. He's always had these great moments, these great games, but he's never been able to put the whole season together. So is he who we see him to be?
Yep, very similar. A lot of Brett Favre in him, just a wild gunslinger. But hey, while we're talking football and teams, each of these teams, funny enough, other than maybe one, is tied to a receiver. And this year was interesting because we saw a lot of wide receiver movement around the NFL. Teams getting a little greedy, saying, oh, we don't want to pay that receiver. And some teams, it's really costing them and biting them in the butt. And so what we're going to do, the next power ranking is we're going to do wide receivers. So I'm going to start. And, man, this one is a real opinion. I have a feeling we're going to have different answers. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll start at number 5. Actually, honorable mention, and this guy's probably top 5 any other year, but Cooper Kupp. Honorable mention. They're having a bad year. He's injured. He's probably out for the year. So Cooper Kupp, by the way, strong Christian if you ever watch his interviews. Very humble, strong Christian guy. Number 5, Jamar Chase. Okay, they had a little splash last year. They kind of started slow, but they're starting to come back. So Jamar Chase, LSU grad, him and Burrow, they're money. They're gonna be money for a long time. Number 4, personally, I think this guy's a little overrated, and his team stinks. And I almost didn't even put him on the list. Davante Adams. He's starting to really miss Aaron Rodgers. He's starting to whine every game and throw his helmet, but he is a good wide receiver. Davante Adams, number 4. Number 3, and this guy I think is underrated, which is Trayvon Diggs. If you go and look at Trayvon's at Josh Allen's numbers before Trayvon and after Trayvon really, he really gives him that deep threat. Man, he was just dominating yesterday.
Hey, your cowboy bias is showing. It's Stephon Diggs.
Stephon.
Get it right.
Look, hey, Stephon, my apologies, Stephon. And honestly, my Cowboys bias would say that we should not pay Trayvon in a few years because he's a little overrated too. But anyway, sorry. Stephon Diggs. But as great as he played yesterday, there was somebody who outdueled him. And man, oh man. Jefferson from the Vikings, he looked Kobe-esque yesterday. They just kept over and over and over. Did y'all see that play? What many are touting as it's like they dueled. First, Stephon had this awesome one-handed grab, and then Jefferson had this. Dad, did you see the catch? Just remarkable catch. And he's so young. So him and Adam Thielen. Now we're gonna neutralize him this week. And I hope he has a terrible game. But number 1, probably. I think most underrated wide receiver probably for the last few years because of his quarterback. And this year he's shown us Tyreek Hill. The cheetah, just single-handedly has brought life and passion back to Dolphins. Man, that coach, he's a stud. That coach with Tua and Tyreek, and they got Waddle on the outside. But Tyreek Hill is my number 1 receiver in the NFL. Adam, what says you?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna say everything because you named the exact 5 that I've got, but I want to focus in on 2 of them because they're so similar, and these 2 are actually, like, if you just said over the last 3 years who are the best wide receivers, it would be Stephon Diggs and it would be Jamar Chase.
Yep.
The reason that I really like them, they don't jump off the screen the way that some other guys do because of how tall they are and they're able to get up and get the jump ball. And not that they're not fast, but they're not Tyreek Hill fast. Both of these guys are about the same height, the same body makeup. They're strong in their legs, so they're able to run across the middle and be a threat that way. But they're also fast up the sideline as well. But I think what sets them apart from most other receivers is how well they run their routes. And that's something you've really got to, you can't be a casual football fan and pick up on that. But if you notice the timing between Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and the timing between Burrow and Chase, I mean, it is impeccable. It is, they can go run some little out route to the sideline, and it's incredible to watch. But I like those two guys the most out of the group. Obviously, certain guys are going to have more success in different years because of their team, their schedule, their O-line, whatever it might be. But those are my two favorite receivers in the league.
Very nice. All right, Dad, what's your top 5?
All right, I too, we're going to talk Cooper Kupp, honorable mention. I think Chase is unbelievable. He's not in my top 5. He started off very slow.
Oh.
He started off slow, and he's out now for a couple weeks, so he hasn't really caught stride. And my top 5 are predicated on this year. So I'm going to start off with Stephon Diggs is number 5. Enough's been said about him. But, I think Buffalo, they're underachieving a little bit. And so, I really expected them to lose maybe 2 games, and they're really falling by the wayside. So I put him at number 5. I put number 4, Deebo Samuels. I love his game. I love all that he brings. He brings a toughness. He runs the ball. He catches the passes when they need him most. So I got Deebo Samuels. Then I got Justin Jefferson. Of course, you saw what he could do yesterday. And then I have number 2, A.J. Brown. Yes, A.J. Brown. Oh, come on now.
Forgot about him.
Yeah, he has really upped that Eagles passing offense. And so he's that guy that came in and taken him to the next level. So I got A.J. Brown, number 2. And, of course, Tyreek Hill, I think, is just tearing it up right now. So that's my top 5. Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Deebo, and Mr. Diggs.
Interesting. I think A.J. Brown, I mean, he's good, but they don't throw it that much. And then who did you say? You said one of them. You said one of them.
Deebo.
Deebo. I hate the 49ers, man. Oh, can't stand them.
I wonder why.
I hate them.
That's because Deebo gets us every time.
I hate the Niners, all the way going back to the days before I was born, stealing Super Bowls from us. Anyway, enough of that. Well, hey, that was fun. We'll have to keep up with our power rankings. And that was interesting. Nobody had the 49ers. Their record's not very good, but everybody's bloviating about how good they're doing. We'll see. 49ers. Hey, fellas, let's make a real quick change to ministry and leadership. We're going to shift to our next segment. Adam, I'm going to set you up for this first question. One of the things we like to do in the pod is there's a lot of similarities between ministry or the life of a preacher that bleeds into the life of just a Christian life. And so a lot of times people wonder, how do pastors figure out what they're preaching, or how do they plan out their preaching calendar, or different things like that? And very similar to a lot of Christians, one of the most asked questions is, how do I know what to read in the Bible? How do I need to read through the whole Bible? How do I kind of do all that? And so, guys, let's take everybody behind the curtain. Every pastor is a little bit different. But if you would, Adam, start us off. How do you plan what you are going to preach on your Sunday sermons?
Yeah, so this is something that I really enjoy doing. I'm a type A, and I love planning, and I like planning long ways out. And so right now, with about 6 weeks left in this year, I've got most of next year's preaching scheduled out already. Now, I've said in recent episodes how big of a proponent I am of preaching through books, and I do think that is the best way to be an expository preacher and to facilitate the spiritual health of your church. With that said, then you have to ask the question, well, if that's where you are, if that's what you believe, what book do you preach? Because, and then once you have picked the book, you have to figure out at what pace are you going to preach through it, which is something that has always, I don't want to say bothered me, but it's something that I've always kind of tried to figure out. And so you can be a faithful expositor and walk through the Gospel of John in 6 or 8 months. You can be a faithful expositor and spend 2 or 3 years in the Gospel of John. So I think what it usually comes down to, and this is assuming someone wants to preach through books, but this also speaks to those who are more topical in their sermon series. You just got to know where your church is. And what I don't mean by that is that you somehow have the ability to kind of look out and see, well, here's exactly what we need, because you might be aware of a handful of situations in your church. But it kind of meets at, where is your heart as a pastor? Because it starts with you. Whatever excites you, whatever you're, just diving into in your own study, is going to also ignite the heart of your people, but also finding a way to kind of bridge that together with what is best for your church right now. So in a practical sense, I would say, if your church has never been used to a diet of expository series through a book, don't come in with some 3-year, plan to preach through the book of Acts or something like that. You've got to pick and choose and know. And that's also true of, am I going to preach the New Testament or the Old Testament? You've got to kind of flip flop on those and just kind of know where your people are. And I say all of that to say, I don't think you can be rigid in this. So in my preaching schedule, about 75 to 80% is preaching consecutively through books. But even in doing so, I allow myself, every 4 or 5 weeks, there's a little empty box in my Excel spreadsheet. And that is if the Spirit leads me in another direction, or maybe what I thought was going to be one message becomes two. And so you've got to leave some wiggle room for the Spirit also to do what he is going to do, because the Lord may just lay a fresh word on your heart from another passage that has nothing to do with what you've been studying through. That's kind of my approach in a very simple way. And again, it's something that we could talk about for a long time. But how about you guys?
Dad, what says you?
Well, Adam said the word planning, and mine is something similar, but altogether something different. Mine's more building. So, for instance, I like to build series that tie into other series that really begin from a theme. So, like this year, our theme was Luke 9:23. If you want to be my disciple, you must deny yourself, take up your cross daily, and follow me. So from that theme, that scripture verse, I have built this year, and we've gone in a lot of directions, but they're all related. And so, for instance, I think I've shared this before. For me, I don't want to just pluck a rose and say, hey, here's this great sermon, and you give it to somebody and eventually it dies out. But what I want to do is build a foundation, and I want to build the soil and, water it and seed it and allow some things to come to fruition through spiritual growth. So, for instance, we took that passage, and then from that, it's like, okay, what is a disciple? What is a Christian look like? Is the Bible alive in me? Because, we know the Bible is alive, but the question is the Bible alive in you? And so, again, going back to what is a disciple? And so each one of those questions stem some other thoughts and some other biblical passages. So for me, it's more of building and direction. So, so for me, I allow God to, not allow God, but you know what I'm saying, to really point what it is that he wants to speak in and through me. So we pick a direction, and then we just kind of stay in that direction. And then my whole goal is to build upon that theme and kind of carry and make a full understanding by the end of the year of what really a disciple is.
That's cool. I think one of the neat things about this ministry is you have guys with very many different approaches. And I always like taking a little bit from each. I love the theological richness of the expository approach, but then sometimes I love the practicality of, sometimes I cringe at the word topical, because we've seen so many guys on TV that just are bad topical. They rip it out of context. And so I like to call it topogetical. So anytime I'll preach, it'll, if it's a standalone or if it's a, it's a text-driven approach. So it's never just going to, be ripped out of context, other than the occasional ones where you'll bring in different supporting verses. And so that's kind of what we take. I'm not saying I let it dictate, but I also try to keep in mind two things. A lot of churches now are trying to be more focused and work in their church mission. So our church mission here is connected people to Jesus and each other. Comes from Matthew 28. I work to find places to put the Great Commission in every sermon I do through our context and ministry lens. Another thing is core values. Every church is a little different, but here we talk about how do we connect people to Jesus by being be transformed, be engaged, and be generous. Those are our kind of values of how we feel like we can reach our mission. And so once a year, we'll have a series on, it's called our B3 series. Who are we as a church? What is our mission? And so I always look for opportunities to place our mission so that we can keep going in the same direction. And then one thing I think a lot of preachers undersell is seasonally. Something I'm starting to learn is there's different seasons when, New Year's, everybody's going to the gym because they got off their diet, or in spiritual terms, they fell off the reading plan and they kind of need a pick-me-up. Or Easter, we're entering into for a lot of churches, an evangelistic time of the year. So while I wouldn't say I'd let those dictate, I'm mindful of the seasons and just to know who our audience is and who's coming to our church. But really cool. And if you're out there, you're reading the Bible, a lot of times people like to camp out in the New Testament. Challenge yourself. Pick a book. I'm going through the book of Ezekiel right now. Pick a prophet or pick an Old Testament. Adam, we always talk about having a well-balanced diet of the Bible. And love that and love the different approaches.
I was thinking about the pace that you might work through a book. And I just pulled up my preaching schedule. So we started at our church the book of Genesis last year. And I spent 16 sermons on Genesis chapter 1 through 3. So wow. 3 chapters, 16 sermons. Yesterday, I preached 3 chapters in one sermon in Genesis. It was Genesis 23 through 25. And a lot of that is just trying to figure out, where are your people? What is the genre that you're preaching through? And where is the theology, and then where is the application? So obviously, Genesis 1 through 3, the whole Bible stems out of it. But you also there's just so many little things you've got to be mindful of and kind of know your people, know where you're at, and know yourself too as a preacher.
Yep.
But I do want to get on the soapbox about something that I hate, that really grinds my gears. And that is, from time to time, as someone that's on social media, I will notice certain churches, certain preachers, I'm not going to name names, who will use other preachers' sermon series. And the reason that I know that happens is because sometimes I'm following these preachers, these pastors that are these heroes to so many. And then I'm like, well, wait, they're preaching the same message. And even some of them, they use the same exact title and will use the same exact images on the screens and stuff. And what you've got there is someone who's simply become a middle manager of someone else's ministry that God has given to them. And if you're listening to this by chance and you do that, stop it. It is awful. Preach the word and you be who God has called you to be.
Yep. No, I agree. That's a good word. And Adam, one thing I was going to say is, for those of us that are on the other side of the aisle, I'd say we do a lot of book series, but maybe the approach is a little bit different. So we went through the book of Esther, and instead of doing, every chapter, we might do 10 weeks. So we might not hit everything, but or some of the epistles, we'll typically do one epistle each year, and so I think most churches do that more than I think people think. But that's a good convo. Dad, I'm going to set you up for our last final question, and we can just keep our thoughts brief on this. Wanted to have something just kind of practical. I was kind of burdened by this yesterday. I've just personally got a few situations where I'm just trying to help carry burdens. And one of the verses that I love is Galatians 6:2. It says, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." One thing about leadership and ministry is carrying the burdens of people. 2 groups specifically that we're called to carry the burden of the saints, our brothers and sisters in the body, but also a way for evangelism is to help carry the burdens of those that we are praying for to one day reach. So let's get practical real quick. Guys, Dad, I'll start with you. What is a practical way how people could carry burdens and really meet a need and just serve?
Well, let me start off even before that, because I think it's real important, because we can answer that question real quick. but I think part of the meat of that understanding is a lot of that work is even done beforehand. For instance, you've got to make yourself approachable. One of my favorite verses is Philippians 1:27, where it says, conduct yourselves worthy of the gospel. And so I think, in order to help somebody's burdens, they have to trust you. They have to know that you are a true follower of Christ and that you carry yourself with wisdom and integrity. And so I think it's so important that we live a life understanding that we should conduct ourselves worthy of the gospel in every area of our lives, because maybe we don't think it, but it's happening. People are watching us. They're watching how we live, how we conduct ourselves, how we respond. And all these things lay a path and a trail for people to say, hey, maybe, just maybe, I can trust that person with some of the weight that I'm carrying. Another good verse is Ephesians 5:15, where it says, be careful how you live, and to be wise rather than being unwise, and making it the most of every opportunity. And again, I think it goes back to living a life so that people can see that you care, that you're kind, that you truly understand what loving your neighbor looks like, so that they can trust themselves in a vulnerable state to kind of share, so that they are willing to give you some of that weight. Because I think a lot of times people don't transfer some of that weight because they're afraid to trust somebody. And so I think if we make ourselves available, trustworthy, live with gentleness and kindness and peace and joy, and not be so quick to point the finger, but to create an atmosphere of love around us that people are willing to come into, I think that really, really helps. So I think the first part of that question, which I just discussed, I think is just as important, so that people will come to you and that you can carry the weight of others.
Adam?
Yeah. So you ask, how do we do this? I think you can break it into two categories. And I liked what Joe said about laying that groundwork. If you've got a church that is, maybe I would say something like impulsively loving and caring, it happens very organically. Like if there's a need, if someone's hurting, they're going through a major rough time, in my context at this church is a very loving church. It's almost to the extent that I don't have to say anything. I don't have to ask of anybody, because I know how loving our church is, and they're going to do that because they've been doing that. That's kind of their legacy. And there's also a sense in which, as we think about that, there's no way to quantify that. Like, how do you carry someone's burden? Because a lot of the times when someone in our church is going through a trial, there can be as many as 15 to 20 people or families that will reach out to them over the span of whoever knows how long. And so they're looking for ways. So there's an organic, but also I would say there's a very intentional way to do this. And you guys have probably heard things like this before. It's very common when someone's going through a trial of any kind for a well-meaning Christian brother or sister, church member, to say, holler if you need anything, or let me know if I can do anything for you. And you've probably heard it said, a better way to think about that and approach that in a tangible way is to say, hey, can I ... Can I bring you a meal? Can I babysit for you? Can I help you with this? And, our church does that well. And I think, if we seek for ways to ask people how we can help them, that really ends up helping them in the long run. Because most people, when they hear that, they're like, I don't know if you mean that or not, because yeah, we could use that, but I don't want to be a burden to you. I don't want to, cause any trouble for you. So if you go around looking for ways, like, can we bring you a meal? Can we babysit? Whatever it might be, it really, really does a great thing.
That's good. And I'll just say real quick to wrap up, one thing I've tried to get better at this year is asking good questions, being intentional. So instead of saying, before I'd say, hey, let me know if you need anything. Now I'll say, hey, how's your heart? I'll ask a very pointed question that they gotta kind of takes them off. Or, hey, how's your mind? Or with texting is cool because you can be real personable. Whether it's, hey man, praying for you today. If knowing somebody's going through a season, you don't even have to talk about it, but just, hey, praying for your mind, praying for your heart today, praying that you'll be filled with the Spirit, and I'm here if you need anything. Or just being available. But the last thing is consistency. Whatever you do, try not to be just a one-off. Somebody's parent dies and, hey, kind of like Adam said, here if you need anything. But try to intentionally, and sometimes I'll set reminders, text so-and-so, or once a week, every Monday, I'll check in with so-and-so. And I think those things go a long way, and just being available, because those spontaneous moments are when the Lord can, I think, use us the most. So anyway, good talk, fellas. Well, hey, we'll be back next week with Pastor Jordan Willard. Looking forward to it. Hopefully this time next week, Dad, we're going to be gloating after our Cowboys get revenge on Adam's purple team.
I called it cheeseburgers.
All right, see y'all next week.